What I can say off the bat is I like it. But the issue is it seems very self-righteous. All right, so today I want to examine knees over toes guy. Before we get into that, I have some applicable stuff for you guys that has to do with knees over toes, but just more developing your squat. I basically was dog shit at squatting. At 23 years old, I'd say my best squat was maybe 120 kilos. You know, at the peak of my weightlifting, it got up to 230 kilos. What I've done throughout this entire channel is taken things and kind of reverse engineered them. Tried to formulate systems that worked for me, and then being a coach, realizing that those systems can work for others. Remember, guys, I don't know how many technique videos. I have a playlist. If you guys ever want to see techniques on snatching, clean and jerking, front squatting, back squatting, any of that stuff, please check that out. But I want to give you guys some squat tips here first before we dive into knees over toes, guys. So now what I want to show you is like the problem, the issue, and then how I ended up solving it and how you can solve it as well. So what I see really stems from bad positioning and lack of training in the knees, hips, and ankles.
The pressure there, do one more, nice and slow. Feel that pressure. Better. All right.
So yes, this is the overhead squat, but this for me, when I went to my level 1 in CrossFit, God knows how many, 2013, and I remember seeing people learn how to do the overhead squat. At that point, I think I was already pretty competent in it, but learning that system and seeing countless people struggle with the overhead squat, what I realized was a lot of people had just generally struggled with the squat. Period. Not just overhead, not just anything, the squat. And what I really mean by that is maximal range of motion. Learning how to passively compress the knee and compress at the hip, right? To get into that bottom position that we see in weightlifting, but even more so just like having a robust, flexible, global set of legs. And so consistently across the board, and I'll show you another picture. This is the bottom position for a lot of these lifters with the overhead. Now, it would give them more range of motion if they didn't have something overhead. I understand that. But even still, you would see issues in their squat. I can guarantee it. Not many of these lifters in this room and most people out there aren't going to have, really good flexible squats, but they can develop that through certain things that typically aren't taught. And I'm going to teach you guys today, things that I have been working on with countless athletes at seminars, anyone that I've coached in weightlifting, even when I was coaching CrossFit, I was doing stuff like this. So the problem with this is someone won't become more competent in a bottom position if they're learning how to get to that bottom position from the standing posture. So that's what I've developed, right? I developed this idea, and it's, I say I developed it, but this is how I learned how to teach it in my mind. I didn't tell people to start squatting deep and sitting on their heels. People have been saying that for a long time. But something as simple as this, and it's called the simplest squat mobility routine, and it's basically about the 5-minute squat. When I started doing this, my squat went up, right? My snatches went up. My clean and jerks went up. This passive range of motion, sitting down as low as you possibly can. And I have a progression for you to be able to develop that in this video, okay? But this is as simple as it gets. Learn how to get into this position by practicing. And it's as easy as just starting your warm-up. If you want to squat on that day, you can start your warm-up with this, the 5-minute squat. You develop it over time. It could be 30 seconds on day 1, and then on the final day, you'll end up with 5 minutes unsupported. You might need support at first. You might need a bunch of different things. But when you develop this, when you develop the squat as it's supposed to be from the bottom position, the rest is gravy. Learning the squat from the top, you don't get enough time in the bottom position. Finally, I have this video called Everyone Should Squat Deep, 6 tips on how to develop the deep squat. This video is basically all encompassing for me. This is how I get people to be comfortable in this position and develop their squat from the bottom up. Please check that video out. Again, a lot of this stuff is in that technique session. You can see here, this goblet squat is just been a total game changer. This is where I start teaching people from the top. I use the goblet squat, or you can, use a dumbbell. This is where I get people to squat from the top down. I have other ways of developing the bottom up squat, but this is it. Guys, you do this along with some competent programming, which, by the way, I have on my Patreon. I have, I think, 2 or 3 different squat cycles and leg strength cycles there. Go to my Patreon, sign up. I promise you, if you do these 2 things, your squat will shoot up. So now let's examine knees over toes guy. And what I can say off the bat is I like it. I like what he does. I see so many similarities in the way that he speaks about his origins and how I started this channel and how I developed certain things.
So I was like, all right, I'm not going to make it as a basketball player. I'm just going to figure out how to bulletproof my knees. So then I start really digging into the corners of the earth to find data. You see what I mean?
Right.
Everything we're talking about right now in this podcast, without question, will be in the textbooks in 20, 30 years.
Wow.
But it takes a long time for textbooks to change.
And I get what he's saying, and I'm sure I've misspoke or said something along these lines, but the issue is it seems very self-righteous. And of course, you have a product, you have something that's worked, and it's worked with a lot of people, saying that the textbooks will be putting your stuff in there. I don't know, it's off-putting slightly, okay? This is not so much a criticism of what he's actually saying, because it might actually happen, but it is a criticism of what people might think.
Now, when did you start getting traction? Like, when did people start paying attention and recognize, like, hey, this guy is really on something?
Making results in person. So I had a gym for 7 years, and I became known as the knee guy.
Where was your gym at?
Clearwater, Florida. It's like a beach town by Tampa.
Sure. My
Tampa's
sister
the main
lived there.
city. Oh, cool. But tomorrow I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to help people. And the next day I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to help people.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to measure my life, by how much I help people. There's no ego. If I made a mistake, move on, try to help people.
So he gets his results almost identically to the way I have. Teaching people your system and getting results through that is incredibly valuable. Okay, you can't take away that. And I believe what he's doing is exactly what I was talking about with the squat. We have the squat being taught from standing posture to sitting in that bottom position. Ultimately, we want that bottom position to be better. So why aren't we attacking that? The same thing goes for knees over toes guy. If ultimately we're looking for knee health, and not just knee health, but knee performance, okay? And actually just leg performance. He works in basketball, so jumping, running, cutting, all of these things, okay? If we're looking for that, why aren't we developing the knee in the most time efficient way? From what I can tell, he has this movement. It's the ATG lunge, ass to grass lunge. It's just maximal flexion in the knee, close to maximal flexion in the hip, and then being able to create force through the foot in that position. Developing that, and again, you get the knee going over the toe, okay? The genuine issue that people had with the knee going over the toe was that it would be bad for your knees. When in reality, it just creates force. It creates shear force on the knee. Essentially, that's what we want, right? We want to create some sort of adaptation in the muscles and ligaments and tendons that surround the knee so that those things can get stronger and work better. Isn't that what we're looking to do in all training? You know, you could say that doing a curl would be dangerous to your elbow or to your bicep because it puts stress on your bicep, but that is what training is. It is stress. So here's the issue though, right? If we are seeing knees over toes guy do these big movements in the leg with a lot of force and a lot of pressure on the knee, you're automatically going to be like, well, I can't do that. And that's where progression and regression occurs. He has an entire system trying to develop you into the person that can do what he wants you to do. Once you can do what he wants you to do, you continue to maintain that and you move on. Okay? On the opposite side of the leg, without just force on the knee, he works on the Nordic. Okay? To me, those two things, we have the big knees over toe lunge, we have the big ATG lunge. Now we need to work on the opposite side, the antagonist of the quads and a lot of the ligaments in the front. Okay? So that's where the Nordic comes in, the Nordic ham. And that movement is the most stressful one. Similar to that lunge, it is the most stressful variation. So what he wants to do is develop a system that will develop you to that being the highest level. It's very simple, but you have this goal of being able to do these two things. And when you can do those two things, it is a marking point. It points out exactly where your knee needs to be and where your legs need to be able to take on forces that would allow you to continue training. That is absolutely what I've tried to do on this channel in every step of the way. Here's the problem that people are facing. Rather than shoving tradition down their throat, reverse engineer it, develop a hierarchy, and try to get people to that hierarchy. So many of you out there are going to squat. If I tell you to squat as low as you can right now, you're going to fall over. It's going to feel awful. It's going to feel horrible. And you might say, "Fuck this. This is not for me. The deep squat isn't worthwhile." So many people would say the same thing with knees over toes guys. They would try to do it and be like, "This hurts." It's hard. It's hard then to understand these regressions are so much more important. And the transformation isn't that far away. It really isn't. It takes like a few months and you start seeing crazy results. With this 5-minute squat, so many people are like, "This, I'm never going to be able to do this, whatever." You do a regression long enough, I promise you a week later, you'll be able to move forward and you can progress into the next phase of whatever you want to do. I'm not sure what the criticizers of myself or knees over toes guy are saying, but I can imagine a lot of it is like, there's not a one size fits all for people. That's absolutely the truth. But what I'm simply trying to do is develop people in a way that gives you tangible, applicable steps. And once you reach a certain goal, once you reach a certain place, you can go wherever you want and you can leave me be and never talk to me again. So that's the video for today. Please check out the technique videos that I've posted, guys. I don't know how many are on there. It might be 100 for all that I know. Also, check out my Patreon. There are squat programs. Even if you're not a weightlifter, I have something called the ZT leg strength. I did that one like a year ago and it's badass. Okay, ZT leg strength cycle. Click on it, start working out, grow your legs, be the weirdo in the gym that has a badass squat. Don't be the guy in the gym that gets under a back squat and has this like cringy fold position. Develop your legs and be a beast. I'll see you guys later.